Hey everyone, so let's talk about the factory pattern. Now, the factory pattern is kind of complex to be fair, but stick with me because it will make sense. The idea of the factory pattern is to isolate. Now, don't let that scare you away. But the idea of the factory pattern is to isolate the logic to create specific entities on your application. Now, in less philosophical terms, imagine that you have like a factory, right? Like a real factory. So the idea is that this factory, imagine that this factory produces stick figures, right? So you can ask for a stick figure and it will create the stick figure for you and return it to you, right? Send it to you to your house. Now, imagine that you ask for a conventional stick figure, right? And it returns it to you without issues. Now, you go there and you ask for it a stick figure with a guy, like an old guy with a mustache and a top hat, right? And it returns it to you, right? Because it's a stick figure factory. So it knows how to create stick figures, basically. But when you ask for a specific stick figure, you don't care how it's being created, right? You just want the stick figure. Unless you have a really specific interest for stick figures, you don't care how it's being created, right? And that's the idea of the factory pattern. Now, to give you a real life example, let's code for a bit. Imagine that you have an application that has admins and you also have conventional users, right? So we have two types of entities, admins and conventional users. Now you could have a process that sends notifications for them. That could be, for example, sending a message for the user email, or I don't know, maybe a push notification, right? So you have a process to send the notifications, right? How could you implement it in a way that it's extendable and also flexible enough for the future? And we could use the factory pattern here exactly for that. So let me open my VS Code here to give you a real example of that. Now, imagine that I want to do something like, I don't know, I want to create an admin user, right? And I want to create admin user, and I want to then send a notification for the admin user. Now I want to do something like send notification to the admin user, and with a message, let's say this is a admin user, right? And it will fetch the type of notification and send that to the user, right? So I want to do something like that. So let's start creating like the first entity. Let's call it person, right? So person.javascript. So we can create a base class now, because if you think about it, admins and conventional users are both persons. Even if they are users of your application, different entities, they can inherit from a base class called person, right? Where we can aggregate specific attributes that both of them share, right? Like, for example, we could aggregate information such as, let's create a constructor, such as email and also the preferred way of contact, right? Where we can send a notification. So we could have email. So instead of using email, let's use username. So it fits more the idea of the example. So let's say that this.username equals username, and also this.preferred way of contact equals preferred way of contact. So we can create a base user, and it basically will have a username and a preferred way of contact. That could be, for example, SMTP, SMS, etc., right? So we'll have admin, which extends from person, and what admin could have is I don't know, maybe just a method to identify that we are dealing with a different entity here, just for example's sake, right? So let's say that the admin can activate God mode, something like that, and we can just say something like username is activating the God mode. And we could also have the same thing but for the conventional user, and the conventional user can't do anything special. They basically they just exist, let's put it like that way. So we have person, which is the base class. We have admin and also conventional user. Admin and conventional user are both extending from person, so we don't have to deal with segregated data that actually are for both entities, right? So here on main, we can now go and do something like admin user equals new admin. Also, let's export everything here, conventional user and the admin. So we can do something like admin, and we receive a username, so let's say admin123, and also the preferred way of contact. Now I want to separate this preferred way of contact into a separate file, so let me create a folder called notification, and inside of that let's call it notification types.javascript, notification types, and let's create a constant called notification types. And we could have, let's start with email, and we can also have push, right, which would be push notifications, and we can do a export notification types, right? So we have the notification types exported here, and what we can do is notification types dot, let's say that admin prefers to be contacted using an email method, right? So we have an email type of contact for admin, and what we can do is admin user dot inside of person, let's create a send notification, because both admin and conventional users could receive notifications, right? So send notification, and we could receive like the message of the notification, and then we can, let's just do console log. Let me copy that one. Username should receive a notification with message, and then the message. So let me call admin user dot send notification, passing in this is a notification. And if I save it, and if I open the browser here that I have running, saying the username is not defined, new admin, this.username, right? So you can see that admin123 should receive a notification with message. This is a notification, right? So we can do the same thing for a conventional user. New conventional user, let's call it, I don't know, John, the conventional user. And let's say that John prefers to be called using push, right? So we can do the same thing, right? Conventional user dot send notification, this is a notification, and it will say John, the conventional user, should receive a notification with a message. This is a notification, right? Now, what if we want to do a specific flow or logic to send the notification? Because right now we are just console logging it, right? But we could have a process, a specific process that could trigger the notification, the send of the notification, right? And so let's create a notification entity, right? So notification, we could have a class called notification, which would be like a base class, and the notification class could have something like process, notification process. Let's call it notification process, and we could do constructor notification process, and we could do something like this dot now we could just call notification process. So what we can actually do is actually move this to a function, and we could receive a message. And what we can actually then do is I'll actually call this send notification, and we could do something like this dot notification process equals notification process, because that would actually allows us to do something like this dot notification process passing in the message, right? So let's say that we also have the email notification type, right? So we extend from extend notification, and what we can actually do is inside of the constructor we could receive let's say that we can actually receive the message from the constructor, call the super constructor, right? So inside of email we can call super, which will actually call the constructor of the base class, that is notification, right? So we can call just super, passing in the function, right, that we want to run, the callback. So we can do message, and here we can do console log message, right? So we basically receive the message, and for now let's just do something like this, plus message. So that's kind of what we can actually do, and yeah, we don't receive that here because we can just directly call it, and we can also do that for the notification, and we can also call here push, and we can export them, export notification, export email, and export push. Let me call it email notification, and let me call it, let's call it push notification, because that would make more sense. So we have them here, right? So we export them, and now I wanna actually call the email notification, which would trigger the process, right? The specific process for sending an email notification. So here inside of person, on send notification, we actually want to call email or push notification depending on the preferred way of contact, right? So to do that, without having to do an if here, specifically checking for that, we can isolate this flow into their specific, let's say their specific class, right? Because that would allows us to isolately test it and things like that. So let's create that here. Let's call it, now is actually the factory, right? Notification factory.javascript, and we can create a class notification factory, and this class will just have an static method called get notification let's call it get notification, let's call it get preferred way of contact, and here we just receive the way of contact, and then we can just have a switch case here with the way of contact, and then we can just check it, right? If it is notification types dot email, we return new email notification, else if it is a notification type dot push, we return new push notification, and we we don't identify what is the type of contact, we can just do a default throw new error invalid type of contact, right? And then we can just export notification factory, right? And here on person now we can actually call the notification factory, right? So we can just do notification factory dot get preferred way of contact, passing in the this dot preferred way of contact, right? So basically what we can do right now is way of contact notification, and what we can actually do is send the notification, right? So basically what we do here is way of contact notification dot send notification, right? Because we already have that here. We have a send here, and if I save this, you can see that message this as notification because I'm using the same thing for both of them, right? So this is a notification. Let's say trigger the email notification process, and here we can also say trigger the push notification process. You can see that trigger the email notification process and trigger the push notification process. So we have isolated the way, like the logic, to actually fetch different services. And if let's say that we change this to actually be an invalid type, it also handles that throwing an error, right? And so the thing that this actually does is that it allows us to easily isolate the logic to create a specific entity, as I said at the beginning of the video. And other than that, we can also easily extend this. So let's say that we want to add another notification type. Let's say that we want to add, I don't know, call. The user actually wants to be called. I don't know. So we can call it just call, and we can easily extend this by creating a new process, right? So we can create a call notification and trigger the call notification process with the message. We just export this guy here, and then we can easily call it on the factory, right? So we have now a new type, notification types dot call return new call notification, and we also have to import this guy here. That's it. Basically we can import this guy, and then we can change this, let's say, to be call. So John, the conventional user, wants to be called. So you can see here, trigger the call notification process. So it basically isolates your logic to create new instances in a specific place. Now that is the factory pattern. I hope that makes sense. Have a good one.